Hi everyone. This is week number 3. Today is January 22. Okay, 2021. So this is the end of week number 3, and I do expect you that you study the 5 types of chemical reaction. Number 1, the synthesis. 2, decomposition reactions. 3, single displacement. 4, double displacement, and 5, combustion. So these are the 5 types of chemical reactions that you covered. Okay, I'm moving into the assignment number 2. The assignment number 2, you are expected to continue on with the balancing of chemical reactions. So question number 10, 11, 12, and 13. Just same as there are a few questions that involves complex chemical reactions. Then you need to learn how to balance the chemical reactions or equation. Okay, now for instance, let's say a decomposition reaction, which in other words is a breaking down of a larger compound into simple atoms. Let's say you have water molecule. Okay, you have H2O. Break down to form hydrogen plus oxygen. Okay, so this is the example of decomposition. One thing breaking down into 2 things. Now to balance this chemical equation, okay, it's always a good idea to write down what is on the left. Hydrogen is 2, oxygen is 1. Okay, it's always a good idea to write down what you know. Okay. And on your right we have hydrogen 2, oxygen is 2. Now you look at the oxygen on the left is 1 and oxygen on the right is 2. So what you need to do now is to add 2 in front here. That is the coefficient. So now 2 multiplied by 2, that's 4 hydrogen. 2 multiplied by 1 oxygen gives you 2 oxygen. What about on this side? You add 2 in front. 2 times 2, 4 hydrogen. And then you have 1 oxygen. 1 coefficient, 1 multiplied by 2 gives you 2. So these are the very important point. These are coefficients. This coefficient refers to the number of moles. Okay, so 2 moles of water molecule. When it's dissociate or breaking down, it will form 2 moles of hydrogen, 1 moles of oxygen. Okay, that's how you balance it. Now, moving on to the next question. This is more complicated question. Okay, let's say question number 35. Question number 35, you can find it on page, let's say page 45. Question 35 involve words. Now, let's say ammonium. Okay, ammonium sulfate. Okay, ammonium sulfate react with calcium hydroxide. Okay. Remember, in quarter 2, I gave you sets of notes, and also we write the chemical formulas of different compounds involving monoatomic ions as well as polyatomic ions. So the first thing here is for you to understand what is the formula for ammonium. Okay, ammonium sulfate. Ammonium, NH4, sulfate, SO4. What are the charges? -2, plus 1. Check your notebook. What about calcium hydroxide? Calcium hydroxide. What are the charges? Plus 2, minus 1. Okay? Now, you don't know the product. Not yet. So what you can do now is, normally in this kind of chemical reaction, this is the example of double displacement. Okay? Double displacement. So what happened, you look at the positive and the negative. So ammonium here, the positive charges will pick up the negative. Okay? And then the positive here will pick up the negative. That's how it works. So the major product would be, look at the metal first. So calcium will pick up the sulfate. So the first product would be calcium sulfate. You have 2 plus, you have minus 2. So cross out. So that would be your formula. Plus, you have ammonium plus 1 and hydroxide minus 1. So just cross out, cross out. So your product would be calcium sulfate plus ammonium hydroxide. That's your product. Okay. Let me rewrite it clearly. I will be using this part of the papers. Okay, so my chemical equation would be ammonium sulfate. Okay, since it has plus 1 minus 2, okay, plus calcium hydroxide. Okay, so 2 plus minus 1 produce what? Okay, so here the formula would be, you remember the swap and drop, so NH4 parenthesis 2SO4 plus calcium open parenthesis, okay, produce, okay, remember this calcium will pick up the sulfate, okay, plus NH4OH. Okay, that's the whole equation. Ammonium sulfate plus calcium hydroxide produce calcium sulfate and ammonium hydroxide. The next thing that you need to do now is to balance the chemical equations. We have, okay, so go ahead and write down each of the elements. Okay, so how many nitrogen on the left, how many hydrogen, how many sulfur, how many oxygen, how many calcium. You add them together. So it takes a little bit time. Nitrogen here is 2, hydrogen would be 2 times by 4, that is 8, plus 2 times 1, that is 2. So 8 plus 2 gives you 10 hydrogen. What about sulfur? Sulfur 1, oxygen. Oxygen would be 2 times 1, that's 2, plus 4, that is 6 oxygen. Okay, calcium. Calcium 1. On your right, how many nitrogen? 1. How many hydrogen? Hydrogen would be 5. Okay, 4 plus 1, that's 5. Sulfur 1. Oxygen 4 plus 1, that is 5. Calcium 1. Now go ahead and look for any numbers. Okay, you add coefficient in front. Okay, so my hint would be, since there are 2 nitrogen over here, I need to put 2 here. Okay, so 2 times by 1 nitrogen gives me 2 nitrogen. It will be affecting the others, so 2 multiplied by 4, that is 8 hydrogen, plus 2 times by 1, that is 2. So 8 plus 2 hydrogen gives me 10 hydrogen. Okay, what about sulfur? Sulfur remain the same. Okay, what about oxygen? 2 times by 1 gives me 2, plus 4 gives me 6. Okay, 6. So look at the equations. So we have 2 nitrogen here, we have 2 nitrogen here, 10 hydrogen, 10 hydrogen, 1 sulfur, 1 sulfur, 6 oxygen, 6 oxygen, 1 calcium, 1 calcium. So finally just put 1, 1, 1. Okay, so this number are very important. Those are the coefficients and very important in terms of chemical reactions. Okay, I hope you understand